just calling the shots. Okay.
But he's great, and to have him back. But he's great, and to have him back.
It's impossible not to know exactly what I think.
Sorry. Not to look back.
We did it.
Yes.
Her tarafında çok sayıda turistler Türkiye'yi tercih eder.
أصحاب السعادة، الضيوف الكرام،
Ladies and gentlemen, your excellencies, your esteemed
في مقاعدكم.
guests,
حفل الافتتاح على وشك البدء.
please remain seated.
أجهزتكم
The opening ceremony is about to start. Kindly keep your mobile phones on silent.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we invite you to take your seats as the opening ceremony will be starting shortly. Can we please ask you to also switch your mobile devices to silent? Thank you.
أصحاب السعادة، الضيوف الكرام، السيدات والسادة، ندعوكم للجلوس في مقاعدكم. حفل الافتتاح على وشك البدء. يرجى تحويل أجهزتكم المحمولة إلى الوضع الصامت. وشكراً.
Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we invite you to take your seats as the opening ceremony will be starting shortly. Can we please ask you to also switch your mobile devices to silent? Thank you.
أصحاب السعادة، الضيوف الكرام، السيدات والسادة، ندعوكم للجلوس في مقاعدكم. حفل الافتتاح على وشك البدء. يرجى تحويل أجهزتكم المحمولة إلى الوضع الصامت. وشكراً.
Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we invite you to take your seats as the opening ceremony will be starting shortly. Can we please ask you to also switch your mobile devices to silent? Thank you.
Esteemed guests, for simultaneous translation, kindly tune into the following channels on your devices. For English, Channel 1, for French, Channel 2, Russian, Channel 3, Spanish, Channel 4, Chinese, Channel 5, Arabic, Channel 6, Hindi, Channel 7, and Portuguese, Channel 8.
أصحاب السعادة، الضيوف الكرام، السيدات والسادة،
Your Excellencies,
في مقاعدكم.
ladies and gentlemen,
على وشك.
please remain seated.
تحويل أجهزتكم.
The ceremony is about to start. Put your phones on silent, please. Thank you.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we invite you to take your seats as the opening ceremony will be starting shortly. Can we please ask you to also switch your mobile devices to silent? Thank you.
Your Highnesses, Your Majesties, Your Excellencies, esteemed guests, welcome to the opening ceremony of the World Climate Action Summit at COP28. We are pleased to welcome you to the Al Waha Theatre at Expo City, Dubai. Kindly take your seats. أصحاب السمو، أصحاب الجلالة، أصحاب المعالي والسعادة، الضيوف الكرام، مرحباً بكم في حفل افتتاح القمة العالمية للعمل المناخي في كوب 28. يسعدنا أن نرحب بكم في مسرح الواحة بمدينة إكسبو في دبي. يرجى أخذ مقاعدكم. Your Highnesses, Your Majesties, Your Excellencies, esteemed guests, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Khulud Al-Atiyat, and welcome to the opening ceremony of the World Climate Action Summit at COP28. What you just saw, the drum rhythms of Ar-Ruwah and chants of An-Nadba, are the traditional calls to gather from our Shuhuh tribe of the Emirate of Ras Al Khaimah. We have heard the call and united, and now we must act. As we come together for a future of sustainable flourishing, it is my great honor to introduce the President of the United Arab Emirates, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan.
أصحاب الجلالة والفخامة والسمو، أصحاب المعالي والسعادة.
Esteemed guests, Your Excellency, the Secretary General of the United Nations,
الحضور الكريم،
esteemed guests,
السلام عليكم.
peace be upon you all.
أرحب بكم
I welcome you all to the UAE
العربية المتحدة
and to this COP28.
وفي مؤتمر كوب 28، وأشكركم على
I also would like to extend my thanks for you attending this summit.
يأتي اجتماعنا اليوم
This meeting comes at a time when the world faces many challenges,
ومن أهمها
the most significant and crucial of which is the climate change and its impact on all aspects of life.
الحضور الكريم.
Ladies and gentlemen,
دولة الإمارات
esteemed guests, the UAE has an established record in climate action.
لقد قمنا على مدى العقود
We have worked over the past decades in order to diversify our economy and build our capabilities in renewable and clean energy sectors. We have set a national pathway to net zero by 2050.
2050 والتزمنا بخفض
The UAE has also been committed to a 40% reduction in emissions by 2030.
واستثمرنا بما يقارب من
To date,
100 مليار
the UAE has invested $100 billion in financing climate action,
مع التركيز على الطاقة
with a main focus on renewable and clean energies.
كما نعتزم
We have also committed
حوالي 130
to invest in approximately
في السنوات.
$130 billion over the next 7 years.
حضورنا الكريم، لقد عندما التزمنا
Esteemed guests, when we committed to hosting COP28,
أيضا
we pledged to bring the world together to unite, work, and deliver.
نعمل وننجز ونعمل على تسريع انتقال العالم إلى النمو الاقتصادي.
We are finding practical ways to accelerate the world's transition to low-emission growth economy.
التموين من أكبر العوائق أمام
The lack of readily available and affordable climate finance has long been one of the biggest obstacles in advancing climate action globally. Therefore, I am pleased to announce the establishment of a $30 billion fund
يسرني الإعلان عن إنشاء صندوق
Once again, I am pleased to announce the establishment of a $30 billion fund for global climate solutions.
والذي تم
This fund
لسد فجوة
is specially designed or specifically designed to bridge the climate finance gap, ensuring availability and accessibility as well as affordability at scale.
يهدف الصندوق إلى
Its objective is to stimulate the raising and investment of
$52 مليار
$250 billion by 2030.
30. حضور الكريم،
Ladies and gentlemen,
قبل أن أختتم
before I close,
كلمتي اسمحوا لي
I would like to tell you a short story.
قائد آمن بحب الأرض
It's a story about a pioneer that believed in loving nature and his land and preserving its resources.
مع شعبه
A leader that worked hand in hand with his people in order to cultivate this great land.
أن الثروة الحقيقية للدول
He was always aware
في أبنائها
that the true wealth is the people.
وإنجازاتنا اليوم
Our accomplishments stand witness
تقبل أكثر إشراقا إن شاء الله.
for all that he has set the ground for
السادة
in order to achieve a future
الشيخ زايد طيب الله ثراه
that is brighter than ever. He is the leader, Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan, founding father of the UAE.
مؤسس الدولة رمز حضارتها
He stands as a symbol of its civilization
وصانع
and a pivotal,
حاضرها
the vital role played by him in order to create and shape the past, present, and future of this land. Thank you.
أصحاب الجلالة وأصحاب السمو والفخامة.
Your Majesties, Your Excellencies,
السلام عليكم
Your Highnesses,
ورحمة الله
esteemed guests, peace be upon you all.
جميعا.
We welcome you all to your
دولة الإمارات
second land
ونرحب
and
بالوفود كلها.
homeland, the UAE. We welcome all the
مؤتمر المناخ.
delegates that came here for this
الله نشكره
climate conference.
على ما عنه
We praise be to Allah
وحباب
for His blessings.
الأرض.
He gave us this gift of land.
نحن بالنسبة لنا في دولة الإمارات
For us in the UAE,
يعتبر موضوع حماية البيئة
conserving and preserving
شعار.
the environment is not a slogan or a logo.
جزء لا يتجزأ.
It's actually part and parcel of who we are as a history, as a culture, and as a legacy.
ولا زلنا
We have been and we will always remain
مبدأ التعاون
committed to the coexistence between nature and the human beings.
عاش آبانا وأجدادنا
Our forefathers have lived on this land
عاشوا مع بيئتنا
and they coexisted with their surrounding, whether in the land or the sea.
حافظ عليها.
They acknowledged the importance of preserving this nature, and they took only what is needed for their survival.
فيه الأجيال القادمة
And they left for the coming generations
والعطاء
a source of goodness
ومثل
and abundance.
وأسلافنا
And as such, we who live now
بهذه الأرض الطيبة
on this land of goodness, we are responsible for taking care of our environment and our nature. This is our responsibility.
لأسلافنا
We have to be faithful and loyal to our forefathers and to our coming generations.
بتعيش الأجيال القادمة
The coming generations will live in a world that is very different than what we have experienced and what we have become accustomed to. And this is why we have to prepare ourselves and our people and our children for the new world.
بيئتنا والمحافظة عليها
Preserving the environment and conserving it is our responsibility, not only as people or as groups, but also as governments.
يتبادر.
The governments should be the ones who take initiatives, and I call upon you and encourage you today that you work for achieving one goal,
الأجيال القادمة
to work for the coming generations
مصلحة
and achieve what's good for their future.
العالم أجمع.
I also call upon the entire world to take this opportunity
هذا
in this meeting
بلد السلام
in the land
سامح
of peace
للتعاون
and coexistence and tolerance,
ونبذ الخلافات
to
والتوصل إلى اتفاق يروي الجبال
forfeit or forsake any feuds or any quarrels and build bridges of
ونمشي قدم
love and understanding in order to walk hand in hand together towards the future.
نعمر الأرض.
We have to build the land. We have to cultivate it. Our destiny is one.
واحد
We are keen
والمصلحة وحدة
because our interest is one.
وحدة.
Our happiness, our joy is one. We all aim to achieve the same goal.
الله.
Best of luck in achieving this. Peace be upon you all.
The reality is that despite all the effort that's been made here, things are going in the wrong direction.
We are in the fight of our lives, and we are losing.
There are too many things dividing our world at this moment. We are heading in the right direction, but nowhere near fast enough.
Whether it will be enough will define this summit.
Let us now introduce a leader whose stewardship epitomizes the ideals of unity, diplomacy, and progress. Ladies and gentlemen, the Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Antonio Guterres.
Your Highness, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, President of the United Arab Emirates. I want to express my profound gratitude for the wonderful hospitality that we are enjoying in Dubai from the government and the people of the United Arab Emirates. COP28 President Dr. Sultan Ahmed Al Jaber, I want to congratulate you on the positive start of the COP, with an expeditious approval of the agenda and the landmark operationalization of the Loss and Damage Fund. Congratulations. Your Majesties, Your Highnesses, Your Excellencies, friends, all protocol observed. Just days ago, I was on the melting ice of Antarctica. Not long before, I was among the melting glaciers of Nepal. These two spots are far in distance, but united in crisis. Polar ice and glaciers are vanishing before our eyes, causing havoc the world over, from landslides and floods to rising seas. But this is just one symptom of the sickness bringing our climate to its knees. A sickness only you, global leaders, can cure. Excellencies, Earth's vital signs are failing. Record emissions, ferocious fires, deadly droughts, and the hottest year ever. We can guarantee it even we are still in November. We are miles from the goals of the Paris Agreement and minutes to midnight for the 1.5-degree limit. But it is not too late. We can, you can prevent planetary crash and burn. We have the technologies to avoid the worst of climate chaos if we act now. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has charted a clear path to the 1.5-degree world. But we need leadership, cooperation, and political will for action, and we need it now. It's true, our world is unequal and divided. As we see in this region, conflicts are causing immense suffering and intense emotion. We just had the news that the bombs are sounding again in Gaza. And climate chaos is fanning the flames of injustice. Global heating is busting budgets, ballooning food prices, upending energy markets, and feeding a cost of living crisis. But climate action can flip the switch. And renewable energy is the gift that keeps on giving. It's good for our planet, our health, and our economies, cleaning our air, meeting the world's growing energy demand, connecting millions of people to affordable electricity, bringing stability and security to markets, and saving money, as renewable energy has never been cheaper. Excellencies, friends, the diagnosis is clear. The success of the COP depends on the global stocktake prescribing a credible cure in 3 areas. First, drastically cutting emissions. Current policies would lead to an earth-scorching 3-degree temperature rise. So the global stocktake must set clear expectations for economy-wide national determined contributions presented by all countries that cover all greenhouse gases and align with 1.5-degree limit. The G20, which represents 80% of the world's emissions, must lead. And I urge countries to speed up their net zero timelines to get there as close as possible to 2040 in developed countries and 2050 in emerging economies. Second, we cannot save a burning planet via fire holes of fossil fuels. We must accelerate a just, equitable transition to renewables. The science is clear. The 1.5-degree limit is only possible if we ultimately stop burning all fossil fuels. Not reduce, not abate, phase out with a clear time frame aligned with 1.5 degrees. And the global stocktake must not only commit to that, it must also commit to triple renewables, double energy efficiency, and bring clean energy to all by 2030. The economics are clear. The global shift to renewables is inevitable. The only question is how much heating our planet will endure before it happens. Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change is recommending ending our addiction to coal by 2030 in OECD countries and 2040 for the rest of the world. At the same time, according to the International Energy Agency, the oil and gas industry accounts for just 1% of clean energy investment. So allow me to have a message for fossil fuel company leaders. Your old road is rapidly aging. Do not double down on an obsolete business model. Lead the transition to renewables using the resources you have available. Make no mistake, the road to climate sustainability is also the only viable pathway to economic sustainability of your companies in the future. And I urge governments to help industry make the right choice by regulating, legislating, putting a fair price on carbon, ending fossil fuel subsidies, and adopting a windfall tax on profits. Excellencies, third, climate justice is long overdue. Developing countries are being devastated by disasters they did not cause. Extortionate borrowing costs are blocking their climate action plans, and support is far too little, far too late. The global stocktake must commit to a surge in finance, including for adaptation and loss and damage. And it must support reform of the multilateral development banks to leverage far more private finance at reasonable costs for developing countries in climate action. And developed countries must show how they will double adaptation finance to $40 billion a year by 2025, as promised, and clarify how they are delivering on the $100 billion as promised. Excellencies, the climate challenge is not just another issue in your inbox. Protecting our climate is the world's greatest test of leadership. And so I urge you to lead. Humanity's fate hangs in the balance. Make this COP count. Make this COP a game changer. Make this COP the renewal hope in the future of humankind. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary General.
شكرا لك سعادة الأمين العام. سيداتي وسادتي، لقد حان الوقت الآن لنحول طموحاتنا إلى عمل وأن نشارك المرئيات حول كيفية التقدم أو المضي قدما. رحبوا بأحد مؤيدي المناخ جلالة الملك تشارلز الثالث.
Your Highness, Secretary General, Your Majesties, Your Royal Highnesses, Presidents, Prime Ministers, Ministers, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan for his warm invitation to speak to you at the opening of COP28. 8 years ago, I was most touched to be asked to speak at the opening of COP21 in Paris, which of course culminated in the Paris Agreement, a landmark moment of hope and optimism when nations put differences to one side for the common good. I pray with all my heart that COP28 will be another critical turning point towards genuine transformational action at a time when already, as scientists have been warning for so long, we are seeing alarming tipping points being reached. I've spent a large proportion of my life trying to warn of the existential threats facing us over global warming, over climate change and biodiversity loss. But I was not alone. For instance, Sheikh Mohammed's dear father, Sheikh Zayed, was advocating for clean energy at a time even before the United Arab Emirates as such came into being. All these decades later, and despite all the attention, there is 30% more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere now than there was back then, and almost 40% more methane. Some important progress has been made, but it worries me greatly that we remain so dreadfully far off track, as the Global Stocktake report demonstrates so graphically. The dangers are no longer distant risks. I have seen across the Commonwealth and beyond countless communities which are unable to withstand repeated shocks, whose lives and livelihoods are laid waste by climate change. Surely, real action is required to stem the growing toll of its most vulnerable victims. Repeated cyclones batter vulnerable island nations like Vanuatu and Dominica. India, Bangladesh, and Pakistan have been experiencing unprecedented floods, and East Africa is suffering a decades-long drought. This past summer, in common with Spain, Greece, the United States, and many other countries, Canada experienced its most severe wildfire season on record, with 18.5 million hectares of land burned, causing terrible loss of life and property, and of course, releasing enormous amounts of greenhouse gases that contribute to dangerous feedback loops to which climate scientists have been alerting us for decades. As I've tried to say on many occasions, unless we rapidly repair and restore nature's unique economy based on harmony and balance, which is our ultimate sustainer, our own economy and survivability will be imperiled. Records are now being broken so often that we are perhaps becoming immune to what they are really telling us. When we see the news that this last Northern Hemisphere summer, for instance, was the warmest global average temperature on record, we need to pause to process what this actually means. We are taking the natural world outside balanced norms and limits and into dangerous, uncharted territory. We are carrying out a vast, frightening experiment of changing every ecological condition all at once, at a pace that far outstrips nature's ability to cope. As we work towards a zero-carbon future, we must work equally towards being nature positive. With what we are witnessing, our choice now is a starker and darker one. How dangerous are we actually prepared to make our world? Dealing with this is a job for us all. Change will come by working together and making it easier to embrace decisions that will sustain our world, rather than carry on as though there are no limits or as though our actions have no consequences. As you gather, ladies and gentlemen, for these critical negotiations, the hope of the world rests on the decisions you must take. I can only encourage you to consider some practical questions which might inform the task ahead of you. Firstly, how can our multilateral organizations, which were established at a different time for different challenges, be strengthened for the crisis we face? How can we bring together our public, private, philanthropic, and NGO sectors ever more effectively so that they all play their part in delivering climate action, each complementing the unique strengths of the others? Public finance alone will never be sufficient, but with the private sector firmly at the table and a better, fairer international financial system, combined with the innovative use of risk reduction tools like first loss risk guarantees, we could mobilize the trillions of dollars we need, in the order of $4.5 to $5 trillion a year, to drive the transformation we need. Secondly, how can we ensure that finance flows to those developments most essential to a sustainable future and away from practices that make our world more dangerous across every industry in every part of the world? I have, for instance, been heartened by some of the steps taken by parts of the insurance sector, which plays such a vital role in incentivizing more sustainable approaches and providing an invaluable source of investment to reduce the risks we face. Thirdly, how can we accelerate innovation and the deployment of renewable energy, of clean technology and other green alternatives to move decisively towards investment in this vital transition across all industries? For instance, how can we increase investments in regenerative agriculture, which can be a nature-positive carbon sink? What incentives are necessary? And how can those which have a perverse impact be eliminated with all due speed? Fourthly, how can we bring together different solutions and initiatives to ensure coherent, long-term approaches across sectors, countries, and industries? For virtually every artificial source of greenhouse gas emissions, there are alternatives or mitigations which can be put in place. That is why it is encouraging to see industry transition plans being developed both nationally and globally, which will help each sector of our global economy onto practical pathways to a zero-carbon, nature-positive future. And, ladies and gentlemen, fifthly, how can we forge an ambitious new vision for the next 100 years? How can we draw on the extraordinary ingenuity of our societies, the ideas, knowledge, and energy of our young people, our artists, our engineers, our communicators, and importantly, our indigenous peoples, to imagine a sustainable future for people everywhere, a future that is in harmony with nature, not set against her. Ladies and gentlemen, in your hands is an unmissable opportunity to keep our common hope alive. I can only urge you to meet it with ambition, imagination, and a true sense of the emergency we face, and together with a commitment to the practical action upon which our shared future depends. After all, ladies and gentlemen, in 2050, our grandchildren won't be asking what we said. They will be living with the consequences of what we did or didn't do. So if we act together to safeguard our precious planet, the welfare of all our people will surely follow. And we need to remember, too, that the indigenous worldview teaches us teaches us that we are all connected, not only as human beings, but with all living things and all that sustains life. As part of this grand and sacred system, harmony with nature must be maintained. The earth does not belong to us. We belong to the earth.
Thank you, Your Majesty.